Mike, it's always a pleasure having you on. You've been on the show quite a few times. Do you think we have to do an introduction today? What do you
It's
think?
entirely up to you, but yeah, I always enjoy coming on your show, Christina. We always have a lot of fun.
I think we do as well. We cover so many different
Mhm.
topics, and for those that aren't aware of Mr. Mike Ricksecker here, he is an author with a new book coming out rather
Yeah.
shortly, and also a filmmaker, a researcher, investigator, and so many. Honestly, your biography is very long, Mike. I'm not
There's a
I'm
few
not even
things in
gonna
it. Yeah.
sugarcoat it.
I
So
may have done a thing or two, but yeah, I appreciate it.
oh, just a little bit here and there, yeah, for sure. But in in the past interviews and shows that we've done, we've spoken about Egypt and shadow people and portals and stargates. But one thing that I haven't asked you is, do you think shadow people were recognized or depicted in ancient Egyptian culture?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we find shadow people throughout all cultures all over the world going back thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians believed in multiple parts of the soul, and one of those parts of the soul was the shadow, or they called it the kabit. And when a person passed away, most of the different parts of the soul would go off to the constellation of Orion. Two parts of the soul would stay here on Earth, the Ka, which is the animated part of the soul, and the shadow, the Kabit. The Ka would stick around for a little while and would eventually go off. In a lot of tombs, you see like the false doorways within there. Sometimes there's actually a what they call a Ka statue that the Ka is allowed to inhabit and kind of walk around the tomb if they wish. And eventually they go through that false doorway and make their journey to Orion. But the shadow still stays here on Earth to roam around.
That's actually very bizarre and not something that I've heard too often. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you have the soul that goes back to its origin, and then you have this shadow figure staying on Earth simultaneously. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we see this surprisingly in Native American cultures too. And each tribe is a little bit different. But in my book, A Walk in the Shadows, I cover the Choctaw tribe, which believed in two different parts of the soul. And one part upon death would go off to the land of the ghost, while the shadow would stay here on Earth. So one was called the Shalup, and the other was called the Shalombish. But yeah, it's that separation of different parts of the soul, and we do see that in other cultures.
It just really goes to show that no matter where you are or what you're doing, it's always super busy. Even though our physical eyes can't see it, there's parties going on out there in these
Yeah.
ghost realms and these shadow realms because apparently, from my understanding from what you're saying, is that the consciousness, the things that you enjoy and dislike
Mhm.
are roaming in that shadow realm. So you can have full-blown engagements and parties all day, every day.
There might be a party going on in your room right now.
And they didn't invite me.
I know, right? But yeah, there's so much more to this universe around us that we don't see with our own eyes because we only see into a very narrow band of the entire spectrum. So yeah, there's things on different levels, different dimensions that are all around us occurring right now as we speak.
And looking at your research, you've covered a lot when it comes to portals and stargates, but
Mhm.
is there a difference between the two from your understanding?
Yeah, so a portal is really something that's naturally occurring. We even see these out in space. We've been researching what we call X points now for almost 10 years. And so these are naturally occurring portals where the Earth's magnetosphere hits the solar wind from the sun. And even though we've had satellites up there that have been researching these things for years, there's there's no predictive model for it. They open at different intervals. They open at different sizes. They'll close back down again randomly. So they really haven't been able to figure out exactly when one of these things is going to open and how long it's going to stay open for, but we know they occur out in space. And it has to do with that interaction between the Earth's magnetics and the solar wind from the sun. So protons and electrons that are coming at us from the solar wind. Now, these portals there allow the particles from the sun to access the Earth faster, and that's where it hits the ionosphere, and we see the magnificent auroras and things like this. So it stands to reason that, of course, we're going to see this interacting down here on Earth as well, because that solar wind is hitting the Earth's magnetic protection all the way down to the surface of the Earth. So those are our randomly occurring portals in nature. So a Stargate would essentially be an intelligent being. And I'm not saying human here. It could be other forms of intelligent life, extraterrestrial, or even like an ultra terrestrial, something here on Earth indigenous to the planet, but we see that's in another dimension. And it's their ability to harness these portals and be able to operate it at will.
So then in that case, do you think any beings or groups on Earth are opening portals and stargates right now? And this could include supernatural creatures like jinn or skinwalkers, cryptids
Mhm.
like Bigfoot, or even secret military organizations. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I believe that there is Stargate technology in operation today. When I've been out in Egypt, they talk about quote unquote Egypt's Area 51, which is right there in the Dasher area, so by the Red Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid, that they have an operating Stargate out there. And the way that it's described is that it's like an aurora borealis on the ground, which is kind of a really magnificent, vivid description. But yes, you could have some of these other beings, whether it's Sasquatch, something interdimensional, maybe some of these UAPs that we're seeing are entering into stargates, and there to our eyes just looks like it's disappearing, but it's actually something that they are consciously opening and closing to enter into their realm and back to ours.
Who needs cloaking technology when you have the power to open and close portals?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so we get to see these things for a blip, but they're still there around us, just on another plane of existence.
In that case, how might changes in the Earth's magnetic field affect paranormal phenomena? Since it's always either on the move as a result of pole shifting or being warped by coronal mass ejections and solar storms, how do you think this is all panning out?
Yeah, all of that becomes like this magnificent soup of different energies. And so, different phenomena is occurring based on how much energy might be in a location at any given moment. So we have those hotspot places on Earth, like our triangle areas, like Bermuda Triangle, the Alaska Triangle, some really energetic locations like Sedona, the Giza Plateau. These are all really, really magnificent, energetic areas. In fact, there's a recent study that just came out here, I think within the past week, out of China, where they were doing some different radar studies, and they detected these massive massive amounts of plasma hovering over the pyramids at Giza. So it just kind of adheres to the idea that the pyramids are harnessing the earth energy and creating these electromagnetic hotspots, and so you're having this plasma reaction above there. So we can use this technology for a variety of different things, and I believe that the ancients did, whether it was for healing purposes, entering into ultra states of consciousness, stargates and portals, a lot of different applications for this, and we see this all over the world.
With that research paper that was just released, what, a week ago, you said, do you think that solidifies the theory of these pyramids being powerhouses more so than a burial site?
Yeah, it helps that cause. There were studies that came out in 2018 that already showed that electromagnetism could be housed within the Great Pyramid. So the fact that it's grabbing energy from the Earth, harnessing it within the Great Pyramid, and then now you're seeing the result of that, the plasma above it, which I believe is a result of the fact that the pyramid hasn't been in operation as it was designed for thousands of years. But yes, it was definitely a conductor for electromagnetic energy. I think the debate anymore isn't necessarily that it was harnessing energy. I think the debate is, okay, what were they using the energy for?
Right, and I wanna stick to that because given your interest
Mhm.
in ancient Egypt and stargates and what we're talking about just now, do you see any connections between ancient Egyptian artifacts or texts and modern UFO reports?
Well, yeah, you see a lot of that. These when they're talking about like a degree of time loss incidents and things like this. You look at some of the like fairy lore that comes out of Ireland and Wales. These stories where they were abducted by the fairies and taken into this realm and completely lost time. You see that throughout cultures all over the world. You look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, since we're talking about Egypt, and the more significant, or I should say most significant papyrus on that, the papyrus of Ani, you see an account where Ani is before the creator god Atum. Now he's deceased throughout the whole narrative, and he's asking Atom, what will be the span of my life? And Atom starts talking about how, well, it'll be for millions and millions of years on top of millions and millions of years. So you see like this layering of time. And he basically starts describing a realm that he is living in, even though he's dead. It's a really, really interesting account that the way that we view the world is very, very different than the way it actually is with these other dimensions and the way time works in some of these other realms and things like that. So it does give you that idea of the abduction scenarios that we have today that are attributed to UFOs and extraterrestrials that, and some of it may be, but I think they might be in these particular cases interdimensional beings, and it could be interdimensional extraterrestrials, or it could be something interdimensional here on Earth. Which then, and I always find this kind of funny because you see a lot of these conversations about extraterrestrials that are living in another dimension here on Earth, and it's like, well, that really wouldn't make them extraterrestrials. They would actually be Earthlings.
And that's when we use labels, right? To really confuse people.
Right.
Because a lot of the times when people use the word alien, right? We think of something outside of planet Earth. When we think
Mhm.
of the word
Right.
extraterrestrial, we couple that with the word alien, and that kind of means everything, even though in reality it doesn't. It just means it's just outside of our planet, outside of our solar system. And then we bring in interdimensional,
Right.
ultradimensional, then it gets a little dicey. Now we're really making this very complex curry. Okay. It's not a simple bread and butter anymore. And when we're looking at that, it seems that is when labels become, in some ways, important, but other ways very confusing and sometimes a little bit unnecessary. Do you think labels are required for this topic, or do you think it convolutes the conversation?
Well, yeah, it's just a good it's a good conversation to have because I mean, we need them to really kind of differentiate what we're talking about. But unfortunately, some of the terms get interchanged. So then people get confused as to, okay, what exactly are we talking about here? Like the whole, the difference between something that's extraterrestrial, something that's interdimensional, where they could be one in the same, it could be somebody from another planet could be traveling here through some sort of interdimensional means, but there still could be people traveling interdimensionally that are here on Earth, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's human either. It could be some other life form in another dimension. You have to consider that there are going to be other life forms and beings living in these other dimensions, and we have up to 11 that we know about. So it it becomes important in trying to decipher, okay, which particular person, which particular methodology are we talking about here? But I do understand how it becomes confusing because of the fact that many people just in a casual conversation will interchange the terms. And in the book that I'm finishing off here, Portals to the Stars, I actually did get a little bit had a little bit of an English primer there in a couple of different areas when talking about like ley lines versus telluric currents, or the difference between using the word symbolism and using the word symbology, just because people keep interchanging these terms, and it can make the conversation a little confusing.
It's good to have these primers from time to time because we forget that's human nature and it's normal and natural, and it's okay. But something that I'd like to ask you about is that in your research on shadow people and other entities, have you found any similarities to descriptions of beings being associated with UFO encounters?
Yeah, you do see a number of these reports of encounters with shadow beings that are they're eerily similar to a lot of the UFO abduction accounts. Now, not all of them, because people will just be standing in their kitchen, all of a sudden see a shadow walk by, but more of these accounts in which somebody wakes up in the middle of the night and there's this tall, dark figure standing in the corner of their room, and it might come over and do something physically to them. There might be time loss associated with that, and it's very similar to some of these UFO abduction cases where people are waking up and they're saying it's an ET, and they come up to the bed, do something to them. There's time loss, or maybe they're taken someplace. And so, yeah, some of these accounts are very, very similar, and it's just we're kind of changing the face of the being from a shadow to an ET.
Do you think shadow people can become solid in our world, even for a short time? Or are they like maybe partly in our world and partly in another dimension? What's your view on that?
Yeah, some of them definitely, they physically manifests into something solid here. It's again, it comes down to the way that our eyes are viewing the light spectrum. There's something about them that we can't fully make out their being. We're just making out a form. And so, like, my first real significant paranormal experience was when I was about 8 years old, and it was with a shadow person that did get physical with me. Came up to my bed, leaned over. I'm trying to scream, but nothing's coming out because I'm just too terrified. And it touched me. It grabbed me by the wrists, crossed my arms, and then ran off down the hall. And a lot of people ask me, "What did that feel like? Did it feel electric? Did it feel cold or anything like that?" And it's like it just felt like anybody else touching me. For the longest time, I did not associate this with a shadow person because I was 8 years old and had no concept whatsoever of what a shadow person was. I thought somebody had broken into the house and was either trying to rob the place, maybe kill me, that sort of thing, because that's where your mind goes as an 8 year old. And it did get physical with me. So yeah, some of these can manifest into something very solid, something tangible that can physically interact with you, while others are like mists and whiffs, or just very translucent. So it's been a really interesting field to study, and how you know we lump all these things into quote unquote shadow people, but they're all very different.
Very different in how they interact with people, their motives, how they look. But it seems that across a good chunk of cultures, there is this level of fear with shadow people, that this level of a negative mentality. But have you come across any cultures or stories where people actually revere shadow people instead of fear them?
Yeah, there are some interesting stories, and I've had people share with me accounts that were more positive in nature. A shadow person at an abandoned abbey in Ireland. A woman was falling down the stairs, good friend of mine, and she'd been up kind of exploring the ruins, was slipping, falling down the stairs, and it was this hooded shadow figure that reached out and grabbed her and saved her from falling down the stairs and breaking her leg. Well, in this particular case, hooded shadow person at an abandoned abbey in Ireland. Well, it was probably a monk from 1,000 years ago or something. Others where another woman shared an account with me where her young son was very, very ill, and she kept seeing this shadow figure go into his room, just kind of walking down the hall into the room. She thought this was a harbinger of death, like he was going to pass away. And they'd gone to the doctors many, many times, and they kept running the same tests over and over again. Well, this one particular time, they're in the doctor's office and we're running the same tests again, and then all of a sudden the doctor stopped. He said, "Hold up a minute," turned his head as if somebody was whispering into his ear, and then turned back around and said, "Let's run these other tests." And they ran these other tests, determined that the illness was something that they hadn't originally diagnosed. They were able to treat it. Boy was fine. Shadow person never showed up again. And the mother of this child now believes this shadow figure was not a harbinger of death, but was something that was there to protect the boy, and actually came into the doctor's office. And even though she couldn't see it at the time, whispered into the doctor's ear the test to run and what to do. So yeah, there are some more benevolent stories here with shadow people.
That story's actually insane. That's crazy because
Yeah.
from what you told me, there are multiple witnesses, right? People that have either seen
Mhm.
it or heard it, and it was helping this young boy. That's just th I think if we were to look at this 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, we would say it's angels, right? It's a
Right.
miracle.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, the woman, the mother that was seeing this, it was a shadow entity. It was like a little puff of smoke, right? Of a person's figure.
Right. Yeah, it had the form of a figure of a person. Yeah, it's the way that her eyes saw this entity, the way that the light was able to reflect off of it and come into her eyes. So, we hear stories all the time of people in the hospital. They're essentially on their deathbed. Sometimes people see light beings, sometimes people see shadows, and they immediately associate, because it's kind of been ingrained into us culturally, that, oh, it's a shadow, it's dark in nature, they must be going to the bad place. Where, well, that's not necessarily the case. It still could be a light being, but that light could just be on a wavelength that is just beyond what we can see, and we're just seeing the core of the being. And the example that I use for this, and I always put the caveat in there, don't actually try this at home, but what happens when you stare at a light bulb too long? At first you see, the bright glow of the light bulb, but as you continue to stare at it, that light goes away and you just see the silhouette of the bulb inside. Don't try that at home and hurt your eyes, but that's essentially what happens.
Actually, that's a brilliant example, because you're right, and yes, we've all started a light bulb, we've all started a candle at least once in our lives, maybe more
Right.
than once, right? And we're able to understand exactly how you explained it. And with these amazing stories that you've shared so far and the research and the investigations that you've done, have you ever debunked a haunting or paranormal claim during an investigation?
I mean, that's happened. Yeah. There's plenty of times I've been on. I'm trying to think of a specific case here, but there have been plenty of times where I've been at maybe it's a home or historic location where they always claim that such and such a thing would be seen at a certain time or whatever, and you go down there and you kind of can see how the light would play and maybe cast a shadow or something like this. Yeah, they may have been wrong on that one, but doesn't necessarily mean that the place isn't haunted. There could still be something going on there, and maybe those other things that were occurring caused them to try to make everything that they kind of saw to be part of that haunting or whatever was happening there.
It also seems that the mentality affects the encounters that you have, but so
Mm.
does food additives, drinks as well. And so, have there been any food additives or substances that might influence paranormal experiences that aren't drug related, right, or alcohol related?
Well, yeah, I was just going to go down the road of dimethyltryptamine, so anything that would affect the pineal gland. But yeah, it's kind of scary these days. Some of the things that they put in our foods. I just posted an article the other day that the food coloring that's used in Doritos, they've tested this on rats, and it actually makes their skin translucent. So now we have ghost rats running around. Not really, because it's actually kind of creepy because it makes their skin translucent, but not their body organs. So they're actually looking at this now as, oh, this might be a thing that we could use to better look at maybe the internal organs for humans, so that we can see things without having to cut into somebody. And it's okay, that's well and good, but we're still ingesting this. So Yeah, I think a lot of the additives of our food, um, I mean, it affects our eyes, it affects our senses. All of that definitely has an effect on the way that we view and experience the world around us.
So instead of eating Doritos that can make your skin translucent, eat carrots instead to help your eyes, right? Don't wear glasses, guys. Eat your carrots.
There you go. Yes, yeah. Different orange substance, yeah.
But looking at the concept of cymatics, the study of visual sound and vibration, how does it relate to the manifestation of paranormal phenomena?
Yeah, this cymatics is really interesting. The different patterns that can be created with sound waves, and you just watched the different designs occur, and it's fascinating. It's almost mesmerizing. You watch it, and you kind of get sucked right into it. But there's a lot of interesting ideas and theories about crop circles, like real ones. I mean, there's plenty of crop circles out there that are man-made, and those are very elaborate and they're very beautiful, and I really appreciate the artists on those. But then there are ones that are naturally occurring, and so there is this idea that you have that the energy that's welling up from the earth in these areas, and very similar to the way cymatics work. It's having an effect here on the crops in these fields, and they're knocking down the crops into these different patterns based on the energy that's rising up out of the earth. So it's a really fascinating study that absolutely has merit to it.
How might the principle of acoustic levitation apply to the potential manipulation of space-time for creating wormholes?
So, I mean, it's a type of energy, right? It's a type of wave. They are actually creating wormholes in the lab on the quantum level. So this is something that they are absolutely looking into. We have a lot of interesting ideas about how acoustics may have been used for levitation of large objects and things like this. We have to keep in mind that everything is a wave pattern. Whether it's sound, whether it's visual, all these different things. So, okay, how would we actually, create that wormhole? We're talking about, as Einstein and Rosen described it, we could bend space and time and create a tunnel between those 2 points. Then we could connect one point in the cosmos to somewhere else in the distance. And the question becomes, okay, how do we bend space and time like that? And when we get into things like string theory and all of that, we are talking about the vibration of different wave patterns across vast distances. And I'm sure some theoretical physicists like Michio Kaku, who helped develop string theory, could probably better speak to that. But it is a fascinating study of how very small waves like that over vast distances can basically construct our universe. And what's always really fascinated me about this is that when we look at some of our ancient texts, you talk about the use of sound or how music was used to create different parts of the universe or even the universe entirely. In fact, J.R.R. Tolkien, when he created Middle Earth, you look at the Silmarillion, the very beginning of the creation of Middle Earth, and he actually talks about music being used to create the universe. Now, he got that from legends and tales that were passed down from the ancients. That's what he was really all about. Was, yes, he was creating his own mythology, but he's influenced by all of these others. And so, yeah, music and sound being used to create the universe. Well, if that created the universe, then we could also use it to travel across the universe.
Can you go into detail on how we can use that to travel the universe?
Well, if I had that answer, Christina, I could probably create the machine that would take us across the universe. And I'd land some multi-million-dollar contract to be able to develop it. Yeah, I mean, it's the idea of string theory. I mean, we call it a theory, because we haven't been able to physically prove it yet. But it is really kind of the going trend of our physics for the last 40, 50 years. And so if we were able to, really prove that out and develop technology based on it, then we could use that. Because our problem right now is being able to is to be able to travel those great distances like that. Our Newtonian physics that we're using, strap a rocket to ourselves and shoot ourselves up. That only gets us so far. You look at the Voyager spacecrafts; they've reached the outer limits of our solar system 10, 15 years ago, something like that. And they're still just outside the bubble. They were launched 50 years ago. Um, so it's not conceivable to send a person out there at this point using this type of technology. So we have to develop something else. And so there's been a lot of ideas like this in the physics community. And I mentioned Michio earlier, and he has a book on if I recall the title correctly, The Future of Humanity, which actually gets into a lot of these different ideas and methods that we could use to try to escape our solar system, with our human bodies.
I wanna be alive to see that,
Oh, absolutely.
especially how we're seeing the developments of AI and how it's just affecting humanity as a whole on a daily basis, and it's just really revolutionizing how everything is going, how it's all developing at this very rapid speed. So then how do you think AI and machine learning might revolutionize paranormal research in the coming years?
Yeah, that's a good question. And AI is something that we've actually had for a long time. It's made some big splashes here the last couple of years because of Chat GPT. And I'll say this about Chat GPT: it really writes an eloquent essay. It really does. Unfortunately, we're now seeing like books and things like this purely written off of AI. It's not entirely accurate. My first attempt with Chat GPT was like, okay, let's see how smart this thing is, and I asked, okay, who is Mike Ricksecker? And well, half the information was correct. The other half, not so much. But it's something that it's a technology that is progressing, and and it really has been progressing here over the last 40, 50 years. Ever since we started developing computers, there's always been a component of artificial intelligence associated with that. And it's just been more and more and more here over the last several years. So it's really good at predictive modeling. It's helped us in a lot of areas there. As far as things like paranormal activity and things like this, I think if you ask something like ChatGPT right now, it would tell you it's all theory and speculation and all that. But if we were to feed it some real data, then I think it could start creating a more predictive model for explaining what exactly is happening, or even tell us when something may occur. Because I believe, and we've seen a lot of literature on this when it comes to like hotspot areas of the globe, like Bermuda Triangle or Sedona or the pyramids, Stonehenge, that different strange things occur there. So if we were to kind of continue to plot that and map that, and with legitimate cases, because there are plenty of people out there, unfortunately, that will say, "Oh, yeah, I had an experience there," that really didn't, um, but they want the recognition that they did. Unfortunately, so that would be okay. Trying to vet that out, that would be important. I think that we could come up with some sort of predictive model for that.
These next few questions I have been submitted through Patreon. And the first one
Hmm.
is, in your book, Travels Through Time, there is a rather intriguing cryptic message that says, the world has blinded you to the truth. Open your eyes and see. What inspired you to
Yeah.
include this hidden message? And what does it mean in the context of your work?
I'm glad somebody found that. Wow, nice. Yeah, throughout my books, I have little hidden messages scattered throughout. So happy to hear that somebody discovered that. Um, yeah, it's that narrative that keeps being drilled into us. Um, across time, throughout history, the story that we've been given is, by the victors. Whoever's the controlling power, they're the ones who are controlling the story. So there's plenty of information that has been lost to time that that is unknown to us at this point. And there are really, really good researchers out there that have been uncovering a lot of this lost history, a lot of this lost knowledge. And, um, the traditional academics and powers that be kind of, try to push them off to the side, saying, no, 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 when it's right in our face. Look at it, open your eyes and see it's right here.
And that particular message, how is it written for those that don't know?
It's um it's a it's a mirror message that's written vertically here between like the first couple pages of the book. So people generally just zip by the first couple pages at the beginning of a book, but yeah, right before the acknowledgments, it's right there.
Nice.
And I got a couple of those in every book. Of
Are we gonna see some new cryptic messages in the new book that you're writing?
course. Of course.
Which when is it gonna be dropped, Mike?
Yeah, so end of October. I haven't placed an official date on it yet. It's either going to be October 22nd or October 29th. Me being my own publisher through Haunted Road Media, and I publish about 15 other authors. I have a lot of flexibility on that. And so I am just working my tail off right now to finish that up. And the important thing is having a quality piece of work out there too. So I'm trying to rush it, but also, have some good quality control there. And I keep sending stuff off to be edited, which my fiance Jennifer has been doing a wonderful job of helping me out with that. Um, she does a lot of technical writing and things like this, so she spots all those errors for me. Um, so yeah, that whole process of trying to finish edit, um, that's going to determine whether it's the 22nd or 29th, but end of October, because November 9th, I want to have those books in hand for an event that I'm doing in New Jersey called Portals to the Stars, where we'll be highlighting that book. And then it's a 4-part presentation on stargates, portals, triangle areas of the world, time travel and consciousness, all of those deep esoteric topics.
And if you want to prepare for that, you can watch all of the previous interviews that Mike and I have done together, as we've covered a lot of those topics where he goes into really great detail on his research there. I have a few more questions from Patreon. One of them being, have you ever experimented with remote viewing? And if so, what were your experiences?
Um, so yes, I would not say I'm a good remote viewer, but I've worked with others who are very good remote viewers, and it's really an uncanny skill, that people are able to essentially tune into a specific point and describe everything that's around them. Now, from my understanding, and talking with those who remote view and also teach remote viewing, it's a skill that everybody can learn. Um, I just haven't really had the time to dive into it, but it's a legitimate skill. Absolutely.
My last one for you before we get into our speed questions, which you are very familiar with,
Yeah.
is in your paranormal research, have you explored phenomena like precognition, telepathy, or lucid dreams with messages?
Yeah, so dreams are really fascinating to me because I've had premonitory dreams on several occasions. The one strange aspect with me on that. So some people, I guess, again, it's another skill that they can develop where they have a dream of something and they can pinpoint when it might happen. I'll have a dream of something that happens in the future. It might be the next week, it might be a month. Some things have been like a year later. It'd be nice to know when that's going to happen. But to me, this is and I explained it a little bit in Travels Through Time. It really is a form of time travel because you enter into different brainwave states, and your consciousness can become free floating in some of these different states and move in and about time and be able to see some of these events that are about to occur. And so, yeah, it's something that I have researched and is very fascinating to me.
Now we're in for our last portion of the show, getting into our rather
Speedrun.
fun questions. And the
Mhm.
first one is, If you could design a custom built location for paranormal research, what features would it include?
Oh my gosh. Um, your speed rounds are not exactly speed rounds because they always make me think. Well, we would need, some a bit of control here. The problem with, trying to prove paranormal activity and like prove a location is haunted is that you need a control object, which a control object for trying to prove a place is haunted is a location that is not haunted. Well, how do you prove the location is not haunted? So that would be the thing for me is like truly having a control system in place to be able to work with.
And if you were to have your own research lab, where would it be located?
Oh, one yeah, really one of those hotspot locations like Sedona would be a good location. Let's do it on the Giza Plateau, any location like that. Yeah.
If you could time travel to any era for a meal, which period would you choose and what dish would you ask for?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a really interesting question, Christina. Um, where would I go? So, you know what? The Last Supper. Let me see what the
Oh,
Last Supper was and experience that. Whatever the dish was, whatever they served. Yeah.
all right. And then maybe you'll might bring a few things extra, right? Just to have a little fun.
Right.
Maybe some donuts, some coffee.
There you go. Well, coffee for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Experience the first coffee. That would be great.
Wow, that would be life changing. For real, for real. And I to be
It
fair, just
would.
just I wanna hold on to that thought just for a moment. Black coffee, I know people love it, but I think for the first time drinking black coffee, it has an acquired taste of dirt,
Does.
okay? I'm putting it out there, I'm saying it. And so I feel like I think the person that first invented coffee, I think it took them a few sips before they said, "You know what? This is definitely sellable. Like, this is actually
Yeah.
good."
There might be something here. Yeah. I drink black coffee, by the way.
I know. And I'm just like, "Should I say it?" "Yes." And I did.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
what is the most harmless yet hilarious prank a ghost could play on a human?
Um, the whole moving objects around. Um, and I've actually seen this with keys, moving the keys around. Yeah, we got pranked one night on an investigation with that. So yeah, just keep moving around, moving around. Yeah, you'll eventually find them.
My last one for you.
Yeah.
If aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, ultra dimensionals invited you for dinner, what Earth food would you bring as a gift, assuming they had taste buds and didn't find human food poisonous?
Um, I make some decent dishes. I okay. Well, this is kind of like kind of an American. Well, no, because it's part German too. So, um, I would bring them my apple brats dish, which is you cook up the brats, but you throw in some apples and some brown cinnamon and cinnamon or brown sugar and cinnamon. You cook all that together and then serve a beer with it.
Okay. That you know what? I've actually have never heard of that dish before, and I'm not an alien, but I would try that.
Yeah, it's a hearty meal. Something, and now that it's starting to get into fall, I'll start making that a little bit more often here. But yeah, it's a nice hearty dish.
Like it. I was gonna guess because of the season, like pumpkin soup, pumpkin
Oh,
lattes, which are just like consuming the entire grocery store. Everywhere you go, it's pumpkin spice latte cookies, ham, I don't know, tortillas. And I'm like, guys, it's good, but like,
pumpkin spice tortillas. Yeah, I do like some pumpkin spice. Yeah, like my sister makes a really great pumpkin roll, so I'm looking forward to that this season. Yeah.
ooh,
Hmm.
pumpkins are delicious. Okay, don't get me wrong there. But when they're putting it in like everything, I'm thinking, um, is that even legal?
Yeah, there are some really good foods this time of year. Like, we just made a big run down into Amish country here in Ohio. So just go an hour south, and boom, you're in Amish country. And oh my gosh, the cinnamon raisin bread that they bake down there, and you just toast that up with some apple butter on it. So good with a cup of coffee in the morning.
Mike, thank you so much for doing this show with me yet again today. Where can people find you online and where can they get your newest book?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again, Christina. It's always fun chatting with you. We have a great time. Yeah, you can find me MikeRicksecker.com. That's my primary website. You'll also be able to find the book out there when it's out, and Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all those places. My event schedule is there, so please join us in New Jersey here. We also have a tour in Germany coming up here in April, so love to have people join us for that. We're going to be exploring the Black Forest. And then I also have my online learning site, the connecteduniverseportal.com.
And those links will be in the description box below. Mike, thank you.
If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.